Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody else in between, my name is Ashton Lewis. This is a podcast that cannot be duplicated, although it has been imitated because everybody on the face of the planet has a podcast. It is the Brookwood Sports Podcast. I'm Ashton Lewis. We're here to talk about sports in general. I guess I should go back to my old tagline. Talk about the best and the worst that sports has to offer, because we got some pretty bad shit to talk about today. We were talking about Stefon Diggs. We're talking about the San Diego Padres selling the team now. As soon as I send off all these tweets, we'll get to talking about that and why that was so important, because there was some history made there. That's always good. Always fun for everybody when you can make history and get a couple $1 billion as well. Still sending off social media stuff because we are a one-man army here. Do not draft me just because I'm a one-man army that goes to the U.S. government. Don't draft me. I have asthma. There you go. Anyway, man, that is some great news to see right before I start this podcast. I have a person I went to college with who, she was celebrating her birthday. She's pregnant right now. She was celebrating her birthday, and then she collapsed at her birthday dinner because they found like a brain aneurysm, and they removed it. And luckily, she is recovering very well. And her family just posted on her account, which is amazing to hear. Anyway, let's talk about sports, man. Let's talk about some sports. Let's see. We got it? Yeah, we're good. We're good to go. I put it everywhere that I wanted to put it. I've been doing a bad job on social media, basically for the entirety of this for this podcast existence, and I'm trying to do a little bit better. I'm trying to work on finding a way to cut clips more efficiently as well. And also, I think this is slightly unplugged. Okay, we're good. All right, man, let's get into it. Let's talk about sports. That's what you're here for, right? Not to hear my dulcet tones, especially right now. My voice sounds like trash. Has for the last couple of weeks. Anyway, let's get into it, man. I don't need to tell you what we're talking about because we're talking about it right now. From the top, what did I put in here in the first one? Here we go. Oh, positive stuff right off rip. Love this. Tina Charles, if you don't know who she is, she's essentially a legendary WNBA player. She played for 14 years in the league, and I'm trying to hold on. My camera lost its focus. Ooh, that's weird. It's like it's blurring my background for some reason, which I guess is good because that O.J. Simpson jersey my uncle has in here is kind of tough. Anyway, let's talk about it. 14 years, Tina Charles, legendary basketball player. She holds the record for the most field goals made in the history of the WNBA, most rebounds, and she's second all-time in points scored. If you know who first is, you get yourself a cookie because it is the same woman that everybody was trying to convince us a couple of years ago when the Olympics were rolling around actually sucked at basketball, and Caitlin Clark should take her spot on Team USA in Diana Taurasi. Luckily, that did not happen because the people who actually watched the games were paying attention. Anyway, most rebounds, most field goals made, and she's second all-time in points scored. She's got 3 gold medals. Not a surprise there. One of the most dominant bigs in the history of this game. Soon to be, I really wish they had like instant Hall of Famers. I feel like you should be able to have instant Hall of Famers, but maybe the delay between when you retire and when you get up, when you're up for the Hall of Fame, I don't know. Maybe it brings longing, I guess you will. But yeah, Tina Charles' first ballot Hall of Famer without question. She won the MVP 2012. She got drafted in 2010. So a second-year player winning the MVP is pretty impressive. And then, of course, a lot of people were talking about this after they announced her, or she announced her retirement. She is a big advocate, was a big advocate in, oh man, trying to put this down before I burn myself. She was a big advocate for the beneficiary clause in the new CBA, the collective bargaining agreement for the WNBA. If you don't know what that is, it's actually so common in other sports. People forget about it not being a thing in the W and other leagues as well. But essentially, when you retire and you earn your pension in whatever league it may be, in the NBA and the NFL, when the player dies, that their family receives the benefits of their pension. And so now that is a thing in the WNBA, as it should be, because no athlete, despite all the things that athletes do throughout the course of their life in terms of their connection with their loved ones and their spouses and stuff like that, no athlete is made by themselves. They are a product of the people around them and all their hard work. And the reason their hard work is possible is because of because of the support and the love that they have from other people around them as well. And I feel like if you ask that person when they died, would they want their wife or husband or partner, whoever it may be, or their mom or their dad, to receive all the money they would have received if they were still alive? I think the answer would be pretty easy. It'd be a big fat yes for the most part. But yeah, Tina Charles, congratulations on a legendary career. Wanted to start the show off with some positivity before we get into the absolute mess that is some of the other stuff here. But we got some other stories that are just like that. Tina Charles, shout out to her, legendary player, most famously with the Connecticut Sun, led the team to some of their best years, and was a huge part of why the WNBA is the way it is today, despite what people will try and tell you and convince you that Caitlin Clark is the only reason that anybody cares about the W now. It's just not true. Moving on, let's talk about some other stuff. The NHL, speaking of money and beneficiaries, the NHL announced earlier today that they have set the new salary cap, which is of course based off the formula. It's the salary cap is the players, the pool of money that is dedicated to solely paying players, not coaches, assistants, and all that kind of stuff like that. It is the pool of money that is solely dedicated for players to sign contracts with, right? Like there's a limit. There was not a limit before in the NHL until they got so big and popular, to now they have a way to set limits to control spending in terms of like the league. By the way, if you ever hear about a salary cap, it is 100% something that the ownership of that league is a big proponent of, because it gives them an excuse to not pay, half their team $300 million or whatever each. And the salary cap also controls cost, which means that there's more money at the end of the season, dedicated amount of money that goes to the team ownership, which is, of course, their end goal no matter what. We all know this. If you are new to sports, it is a business, and the people who own the teams are trying to make as much money as possible at any given time at all times. And in 2005, the NHL instituted their first ever salary cap, and that was 21 years ago. It was $39 million, which is a lot of money just in general. It's a lot of money in general, but in the grand scheme of sports, when you talk about the NHL as a big four sport in America, is actually the number one hockey league on the planet, despite, if you don't know that, it's the number one hockey league on the planet, and $39 million in 2005 goes a long, long way, even if it's split up amongst the 15 guys who are on the roster for an NHL team. But 2026, $104 million is the new announced salary cap, and I wanted to take some time. It's an $8.5 million increase from last year, which was $95 million. And I want to take some time because, honestly, there's somebody who basically earned the right to be the biggest dick on the planet when this thing got signed, and I feel like, even me, I'll give him a pass on this one. So in 2020, we all know that there was a global pandemic that basically shut down people's ability to attend any type of sporting event or any large public gathering to prevent the spread of the disease COVID-19, which made sense. It saved a lot of lives, despite, for whatever you have to believe. I'm not really here for it. I believe in science. But yeah, 2020, the league made a key decision to set a flat cap, a flat salary cap. Essentially, they made the decision that they were going to make like a slight adjustment. It was artificially set, which is always tough because you can't just sit there and say, "Oh man, global pandemic happened. We're going to base the amount of money we spend based on the amount of revenue we generate in this year where there are no fans in the audience. There's not as many jerseys being sold. And if anything is being sold, if you remember in 2020, it was a great time to be a sports fan because your team had everything in their team shop on a discount, right? Like Fanatics, still, I've not seen days where Fanatics is like 70% off today since 2020, right? And it happens, they do 60, they do like free shipping if it's over $25, all that kind of stuff like that. But I have not seen the number of sales across sports leagues in America like I saw when Fanatics was trying to sell stuff during 2020. So even if you did buy merch, it was at a severe discount, right? Which is obviously cutting into the revenue generated by the leagues. They decided they were going to take some basic information that they gather they gather information every single year about spending trends, like where people are buying stuff, when they're buying certain materials, when they're coming to games, at what point during the year they're coming to games, and they take that information and they come up with an estimate for how much the season would have been. It would have been $88 million in 2020, and they decided they were going to set a flat cap of $81 million for the salary cap that following year, and they said they were going to have it be $81 million until the amount of revenue that was lost in 2020 was made up by the league. So there was going to be possibly multiple years where the NHL was going to have a flat cap of $81 million, meaning that there was not going to be an increase of money that players were able to obtain. If you ever noticed, we talked about this with WNBA free agency, where there were so many star players. Basically, every key player in the league, and then even some of the role players, were not under contract. It's because their agents all knew that there was going to be a collective bargaining agreement, and they knew based off of the rise and hype of the WNBA, the new TV deals that were being signed, like the WNBA is more accessible than it's ever been before, so there's going to be more money involved with it. They knew the best time for their client to be a free agent was going to be after the CBA gets signed. And that's how they're able to sign for all these millions of dollars, right? Because if they were under contract, they'd have to take the salary they were currently dealing with, and they'd have no recourse to get new money. And so teams would be able to kind of like skate off into the distance this upcoming season without having to spend all that new money in the increased salary. Same thing happened with the NHL. They artificially set the cap based off of previous information, and it would have sucked, and it did happen to a couple of players, to be a free agent in 2021 and 2022 and 2020 because there wasn't new revenue coming in. There wasn't a higher salary cap for them to earn more money. Now, they didn't have to go multiple years with a set cap, which meant that after the first year of the flat cap, well, really it was like a year and a half, flat cap, they went and increased it because they saw there was a couple things that happened, but the two big things were new TV contracts is always more money because live sports are one of the few things that really generates a ton of attention and a ton of eyeballs in terms of like the grand scheme of how America views the world. Like people don't watch TV the same way that they used to, but they still watch sports the same way that they used to, and that's all together at the same time. It's some of the only appointment viewing television that is left in America. It used to be TV shows like, remember Lost, Seinfeld. At one point, is Seinfeld still like the most watched like series finale in the history of television or something like that? But yeah, so they had that going on. That being said, taking all that into account, they were able to generate and earn back all the revenue that was lost in 2020 in enough time to increase the salary cap. And I find that to be monumental because there's a lot of leagues that stopped existing after 2010. Not to say that the NHL was going to stop existing, but there was a couple of times throughout the course of this timeline that we're talking about from 2005 to where we are now in 2026, where the salary cap would have dropped down into like the $60 million range, which would have been a massive setback. Instead, it continues to grow due to some great decisions that were made by the main office, the HQ office of the NHL in the grand scheme of business. And Gary Bettman, I feel like, comes out looking amazing because there's nothing that gets people to love you more than when you put more money in their pockets. And Gary Bettman put a lot of money in a lot of people's pockets over the last couple of years, and then for the years coming, because if the salary cap goes up, that means that revenue has gone up. That means that players are getting paid more money, and it makes everybody like you a little bit more. I think we can all say that. You can have a shitty boss, but if they give you, a $10,000 raise when you go to work, it makes them a little less shitty for assortment of reasons. But yeah, that's basically what's happened for the NHL. A lot of good business making decisions, and this is kind of what honestly, this is what a commissioner is for. A commissioner is for leading in times of great strife and great problems. Like the NBA is in a similar situation where there has now been a massive outcry to focus on the teams that are setting their teams up for failure in terms of tanking on purpose and trying to find a way to work teams in actually competing and doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so now Adam Silver, at another inflection point of his career as the commissioner of the NBA, has to find a solution to a method of playing this game financially that did not exist for any predecessor prior to him, right? David Stern didn't have to worry about teams tanking. It wasn't a real thing until we saw stuff like what the 76ers were doing, saw stuff like what the Oklahoma City Thunder were doing. And for the NHL, they've been able to overcome the fact that they are, at one point, were, a fourth the number 4 out of the big 4 sports in America, and now they're trying to, get back into the action. And the first way you do that is to get the best talent and pay the best talent. More people are going to NHL games, ticket revenue is up, jersey sales are up, parity is up. And I also want to say this, Gary Bettman putting the NHL in a position where the Olympics will allow NHL players and all the other auxiliary international tournaments, like the Four Nations Cup and everything like that. I think that goes a long way, too, in terms of establishing who the best country is in terms of producing hockey, which is a global sport. Despite what some people may believe, hockey is played all over the world. And when you can go out there and definitively say that the NHL has the best talent in the world, that draws eyeballs. There are people who watch the EPL who do not speak English, right? They watch the English Premier League, do not speak English, right? I've watched EPL games, and I don't even know, what the table looks like until I Google it at any time before leading up to it and stuff like that. And it's because I know the EPL is some of the best football that's being played on the planet. And that goes a long, long way. I don't watch Brazilian league soccer, the Brazilian main league soccer. No shade to Brazil. They produce amazing players, but I watch the EPL because it's the number 1 league in the world, and they pay the most money for the best players, and the results show themselves out when you watch the games. Other than that, man, I thought it was pretty cool for the NHL, especially in a time where, everything's getting more expensive for the sports that have not been as expensive in years past to really kind of step it up and show that they are gaining popularity against him. This is happening with baseball as well, which is probably why baseball owners for the first time in forever are now trying to pressure for a salary cap so they can prevent stuff like what the Dodgers are doing. Whatever. But yeah, the NHL announced earlier today that they have an all-time high in their salary cap, which means there's going to be more people who want to get in business with the NHL for a multitude of reasons. Same thing. This is exactly what's happening with the WNBA. It's happening with the NFL basically forever. There's never been a time where the NFL has had the salary cap actually decrease, and that's for obvious reasons. Moving on, other stuff. The Stefon Diggs case. So, for those of you who don't know, Stefon Diggs is currently an NFL free agent. He is one of the best, if not, he is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and he showed it this past year. He came off of an ACL tear when he was with the Houston Texans. He tore his ACL pretty early on in the season, and a lot of people, based off what happened with Buffalo, where he didn't have his greatest time as an NFL wide receiver, felt like he was kind of fading away, and maybe his career was about to dry up, and he was going to be relegated to the former great wide receiver path, which usually ends up with you playing football in Tennessee for the Titans for some reason. But it does happen that way more often than not. And to be honest with you, even after this case, I still think that could be happening for Stefon Diggs. Anyway, there was a case that happened leading up to, I think it was at the beginning of the playoffs, but leading up to the Super Bowl, there was a case that came to light that Stefon Diggs was being accused, it was like a lawsuit, that Stefon Diggs was being accused of assaulting his live-in chef. And a series of things have happened since then, including the fact that Stefon Diggs has been found not guilty in this case of assault. So I just wanted to go through some of the wild stuff that happened when this was all said and done. If you guys don't know, this also coincided with Stefon Diggs' relationship with Cardi B, where they now have a child together, and apparently Cardi B doesn't even really talk to. I wouldn't say doesn't talk to him, but she doesn't seem all that enthused. There was that clip that happened where she was at some awards show. I forget which one it was. She was at some awards show, and they asked her hey, do you have any words for Stefon Diggs? It was the weekend of the Super Bowl, and she said good luck, and then walked away. And it was a very Cardi B's not one to hide her emotions. I'll say that much. And she said good luck in the driest form that Cardi B could possibly say. And walked away from the interviewer. This is probably why. So, let's take it from the top. Jamila Adams is a young woman who was the live-in chef for Stefon Diggs. She was also, for about 4 years, Stefon Diggs is friends with benefits, which we're coming to find out. He got a lot of friends with a lot of benefits. And Jamila said their relationship started essentially when he reached out to her via Instagram, slid in the DMs, as we call it now colloquially. He slid in the DMs. They start hanging out and all that kind of stuff like that, and they engage in a friends with benefits relationship, which is totally normal because they're both consenting adults and they were both single and all that kind of stuff like that. The claim, and then after that, at some point in like 2025, she moves in to Stefon Diggs' house and becomes his like live-in chef. Apparently, Stefon Diggs has a lot of people. He has like a hairstylist. He has an assistant. He has a chief of staff, which I'd love to know what the chief of staff does for for an NFL player, because chief of staff is a term that you only really hear where you're talking about like politicians, right? But yeah, he has a chief of staff, a hairstylist, and now apparently a live-in chef and an assistant and a bunch of other people who he's connected to in a lot of different ways that he pays the salary to basically make his life happen. And this young lady, Jamila Adams, claimed that a text argument that she had with Stefon Diggs resulted in him coming downstairs, them getting into an argument face-to-face because she lives in his house, and then him strangling her by her accusations. This is interesting because the case basically had her answer a series of questions as to how that was possible. She went to, and you can look at some of the clips that have come out. She said that she went and filed a police report. The police didn't take any photographs of the assault or anything like that. She asked to speak to a female agent. They didn't take any photographs of the injuries. The officers in the situation also admitted they didn't see any injuries that would coincide with strangulation from somebody. And then apparently, the young lady, Jamila Adams, was still, this is like days afterwards. There's video footage that was taken by one of the other staffers for Stefon Diggs' life, where she's like dancing around and singing and stuff like that, having a good time. And this was used in the case to prove that if Jamila Adams was a person who was a victim of assault, this is very strange behavior to coincide with that. Now, I will say this. It's very clear that Jamila is very locked into Stefon Diggs' life, right? Like, she gets paid like $2,000. She was at the time was getting paid $2,000 a week to make every meal that Stefon Diggs was eating. Plus, she was also living in his house, right? Like, so, like, shelter and her job is connected to Stefon Diggs. So there's no telling how a person who's in that type of situation reacts. There's a long history of understanding how this can be similar to a lot of other young ladies' struggles and stuff like that. But as this case went on, there was some interesting behavior from Jamila on the stand when she was giving her testimony. She refused to answer multiple questions. Like, for instance, at one point, they asked her, did her lawyer most recently ask Stefon for $5.5 million in exchange for her dropping this lawsuit? And she refused to answer that question. And then she went on to she went on to say into the microphone, instead of answering the question, he offered me $100,000 to recant my statement. And then they had that stricken from the record because it was not answering the question that she was asked. And if answering the question you were asked was an issue for proving your case, which it is, when the prosecutor comes up and asks you a series of questions, for instance, like texting with Cardi B about, or like revealing the text messages to a series of people. I think she released the text messages to TMZ and a bunch of other people as evidence. And then she had Cardi B reach out to her about whether or not that was really her. And she told Cardi B that was not what she said. And she refused to say, or she actually, for a good chunk of the time, pretended she did not understand the question. What she was being asked about. Hey, did you write this text message? And what did you mean by writing this text message? She said, I don't understand what you're talking about. And then she kind of like gives this like sarcastic smirk because a prosecutor's rephrasing the question again. And before she even finishes the question, she says, I don't understand your question. And it's a person who is it was very easy to build the case for Stefon Diggs in his support, because basically they were like, she's an unreliable witness of the situation that she's even talking about, while Stefon Diggs has all these text messages. And then on top of that, combined with the fact that when she turned her phone into the police to look at the text messages to enter those as evidence, she admitted that she deleted multiple text messages because they looked bad. She didn't like how they could possibly be perceived. And when you're talking about accusing somebody of assault, removing evidence and then like customizing evidence to fit and mold your own narrative makes you look terrible, especially in a lawsuit where it is come down to he said, she said. There's no video evidence of you being attacked. And this is kind of essentially that's what dug her own grave in this case. But the crazy part about this is, and I'll say this much, as Jamila started to reveal reveal details about her relationship with Stefon Diggs, she said a series of absolutely insane things. Not insane in the sense that she is a person who's struggling with her mental health, but it was a revealing of the behavior of Stefon Diggs. She admits to she admitted at the time she was currently in a sexual relationship with Stefon Diggs. She also admitted that the basis of the text message argument that she had with Stefon Diggs was one of Stefon Diggs' baby mamas. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know the exact number. I think it's like 3 or 4 women that Stefon Diggs has kids with. She reached out to Jamila Adams, the live-in chef at the time, and told her that she had found out that Stefon Diggs was also having a sexual relationship with another woman who was on the staff by the name of Lindsay. This is in like TMZ articles and stuff like that. So I don't have any evidence to reinforce it, but that's what she says her story is, right? And that's what I'm assuming that's what the text messages reinforce. But it is said the baby mama reached out, or Stefon Diggs' baby's mother reaches out to Jamila Adams, says that he's having a sexual relationship with somebody else who's on the staff. Stefon Diggs she confronts Stefon Diggs about it. He gets upset, and she says that's the reasoning for the attack. Now, the other part is that it created a rift it created a rift amongst Lindsay, who's also on Stefon Diggs' staff and apparently gets a salary from him, and he pays for her rent for where she lives, which is not in the house. And because of that rift, Jamila was told that she couldn't go to Art Basel, which is like a music festival, right? I think so. It happens in Miami. I've heard of it before. I've seen videos from it. I have no idea what it is. It's like Stagecoach. I don't know what Stagecoach is at its full extent. I just assume it's a music festival. Jamila was upset because she didn't talk to Lindsay about this situation because she was still also having, Jamila did not talk to Lindsay because Jamila was also in a sexual relationship with Stefon Diggs and was also planning to hang out with Cardi B in Miami at Art Basel. So she is knowingly, based off what I'm understanding, knowingly cheating on, or knowingly with Stefon Diggs, knowing that he's cheating on Cardi B with 2 other women, like herself and Lindsay. And that is the basis of the text message argument that they got into. And it explains why Cardi B was so upset the weekend of the Super Bowl on a high level. I will also point this out, and I'll say this from my absolute chest here, because Stefon Diggs was found not guilty of the assault because there was no evidence for the jurors to even rely on to make a decision that Jamila had been attacked in general, right? Like there was no physical evidence that had been recorded by the police officers. They had taken her statement, they had taken the text messages, but you can't base something that happened some other time based off of just text messages alone, unless you were like, I killed her in the text message, or I attacked you for a reason in the text messages, right? And that was not the case. The crazy part is the amount of money that Stefon Diggs spends on just ladies in his life. He was paying this young lady, Jamila Adams. He was paying the other lady, Lindsay. I'm assuming he's also paying his baby mamas because either child support or money that is equivalent to child support for his kids. And then, I'm going to be honest with you, and this is speculation, not accusing them of anything, I have to assume that they're not the only two ladies that Stefon Diggs is friends with benefits with. So there's no telling how many other ladies and people in general that Stefon Diggs is paying simply because he hooks up with them. And on top of that, now he's got a famous ex-girlfriend who he has a kid with who is never shied away from talking about men who doing dirt in her life. And I think, me personally, and I sit here and I say this with my whole chest, there's only one person that this podcast is going to slut shame, and it is Stefon Diggs. I will be doing that for quite some time. Stefon Diggs, a slut. It's crazy that, and obviously this is coming from a guy who literally has a podcast called the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. It is crazy to me to go to these type of lengths to have sex with women. Especially considering every other NFL player has probably got a bunch of friends with, or a lot of other NFL players have friends with benefits, and I doubt they're paying for them to live in his house or paying for a job that person has. Crazy work on a whole nother level. We can sit here and talk about Jamila Adams till we're blue in the face, but I'm going to talk about the dude that I know a lot about. Based off of just general calculations, the number of kids he's got that eventually he could be put on. I don't know if he's on child support for any of his kids, but I'm assuming he pays those ladies money on a regular basis to take care of his children, or maybe he takes care of himself somehow financially in some other way. Plus all the other ladies on the side, plus the entire staff of people who, from what I understand, are also all women, plus the entire staff of people who take care of him. He paying a lot to fuck. It's crazy on a lot of levels, because it didn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. But I guess that's dedication, man. It is understandable now, and every year that passes, why that video exists of the Minnesota admin team, social media team, going around in the locker room and asking all the players, who is the guy on the team that you would never let date your daughter? And they all say Stefon Diggs without question. And Jesus, man, it just doesn't, it seems like a poor use of money. I will also say this: if it is the amount of money that I think it is, or the level of money that's being spent that I think is being spent, Stefon Diggs gonna be running them slant routes for a long, long time. He would love to go play for the Tennessee Titans right now, and that's what I feel like he's just itching to get back into it. They posted a video of him working out on some social media account, being like, right after he was found not guilty, he immediately hit the gym, and I was like, I bet he did. I bet he did hit the gym. He got to get to work. He got to get that signing bonus, man. Like, getting cut from the Patriots was brutal. It's got to be even more brutal for Stefon Diggs to also then later on find out that his head coach was engaging in some relatively similar activities. And yeah, man, the amount of money to be in this situation is just mind-blowing to me. And that's why I'm a broke boy, and that's why Stefon Diggs is rich. At least for now. Me and him might be, you know what, Stefon Diggs might be asking me for $1 pretty soon. Who knows? Anyway, that's all I wanted to say about this case. It was obviously fucked up for her to seemingly falsely accuse Stefon Diggs of attacking her. And then on top of that, I think the bigger thing I take away from this is like, wow, man, Stefon Diggs is a hoe. And his hoeing ways is going to get him in trouble again, I'm sure, in some way, shape, or form. And, man, Klay Thompson has got to be so thankful that Stefon Diggs' case popped up this week, because I bet a bunch of people, the overlap of Cardi B fans and Megan Thee Stallion fans is probably a pretty big Venn diagram. And they probably way more focused on the fact of, because I typed in Stefon Diggs slut on Twitter, and there's plenty of tweets when you go check it out, and they're all very funny to me. Anyway, moving on. What else did I write in here? That's the Stefon Diggs case. Ooh, that's it. Speaking of which, let's talk about some black women. Let's talk about a black woman. Name's Kwanzaa Jones and her husband, Jose Feliciano. They are now the new, it hasn't been made official, It has been made unofficial that they will pay $3.9 billion from their from their private equity fund that they both founded to take possession or take ownership of the San Diego Padres. They are now the principal owners of the San Diego Padres baseball team, which I'm going to be honest with you, based off what we know about private equity, things about to get a little weird with the Padres, I'd imagine. Kwanzaa and Jose, Kwanzaa in particular, is the first black woman to ever be the principal owner of any MLB team ever. And if you recall, the MLB is over 100 years old. So that's really good. Big progress forward. You know, even if it is your opinion about rich people and people who have immense wealth, that graphic is wrong. It says 3.9 million. It's 3.9 billion. Which is almost $1 billion higher than what they estimated. I think they estimated 2.4 for the Padres, and it's 3.9. But yeah, Kwanzaa Jones, first black woman, graduated from Princeton, apparently won the amateur night at the Apollo Theater one night, or night at the Apollo one time while she was still in college. And then her and her husband both have dorms named after them at Princeton, where she graduated from. Crazy work. And then also Jose Feliciano is the first Puerto Rican man to ever be the principal owner of an MLB team. Congratulations to both of them. It's a lot of hard work along the way. I don't know anything about what they do in their private lives. I've seen a bunch of stuff about how they donate to the education of children and all this kind of stuff like this. They can also be heavily involved with some really fucked up shit to be able to make the kind of money that it takes to be able to pay $3.9 billion for a baseball team. If that is the case, hit me up on Twitter, FB_playbook. I'd love to hear about all the horrible things that a new owner for a major league franchise is up to. Because we found out this year, thanks to Pablo Torre finds out. By the way, shout out Pablo. Pablo won a Pulitzer Prize for his research, for basically, I think it was specifically for the Steve Ballmer Aspire industry or Aspire Corporation scheme, essentially, and uncovering that in every detail of it. Shout out to him. He's a guy who is a sports podcaster and uncovered a massive money scheme from a founder of Microsoft, which is crazy work, but on a whole nother level, really amazing effort and deduction and stuff like that, just because I used to listen to Pablo when he was doing ESPN Daily and making really funny content for a long period of time. And he was also on High Noon with a guy that I listen to this day, Bomani Jones. And both of those guys are immensely talented. Pablo getting a Pulitzer Prize is hilarious. He is never going to let anybody ever forget, and he should not, because he's been working hard to get to this point, man. It's been amazing to see his rise as a podcaster in general. A guy who, one of the rare cases, dude that leaves ESPN and then ascends to a height that ESPN didn't think he could get to. So that's pretty dope, man. That's pretty fucking dope. I'm gonna take a break because I don't think I have anything else left on this slide over here. I do not. We're gonna take a hydration break. When we come back, we will talk about the NBA playoffs. We're gonna recap what happened in round one, and I'm gonna talk about some of the stuff I saw in round two. I'm not gonna get like super deep in the weeds on the X's and O's. I'm gonna talk about like what the ramifications of the wins and losses are. Some of the stuff that I saw that was pretty amazing, because NBA basketball just casually has amazing shit happening on a regular basis. Anyway, when we come back, we'll do that. I'm going to take a little bit of a break, and so are you. We're going to listen to a song from one of my teammates, Christina Gukas. Let's see what song we're going to pick today. Oh, is it Closure? No. We're going to go Fighting These Battles by Christina Gukas. I'll be right back right here on the Broke Boys Sports Podcast. This is a cigar, by the way, not weed. YouTube. Anyway, you guys probably saw me spend about like 30, 40 seconds trying to light that cigar. It's because I used the shittiest lighter that I own. I'm not going to be dissing any brands. I spent like $30 on this thing. And I got this one for free from a cigar lounge that I go to all the time here in Houston called the Heights Cigar Lounge. And it instantaneously lights up every time I hit it. That one takes like 20 attempts. And I got that one for free from Customer Appreciation Day. Shout out. Heights Cigar Lounge. Love that place. And excuse me. Anyway, that's how the cookie crumbles in cigar smoking. Sometimes you buy a cigar that's $15 and it's better than a cigar that's like $100. So that's legitimately a thing. Other stuff I wanted to talk about. I don't have much to say about horse racing. One might say that I'm against horse racing in some ways, but I love me a good story, and I cannot deny that Sherry DeVoe, Golden Tempo's trainer, becoming the first female trainer to win the Kentucky Derby is pretty fucking lit. I know she's probably had to put up with a lot of bullshit to get to the point where the horse was in the Kentucky Derby. And even afterwards, I'm sure there's some people who are still trying to take it away from her. That's just how the world works, but you know how it really works? About to get that money. They did already announce that Golden Tempo is not going to try for the Triple Crown. It's probably because they're going to put Golden Tempo out to stud, and he's just going to be a professional sex worker for the next, I don't know, indefinite time. Especially considering the way he won the Kentucky Derby. It's not like he wasn't even like a front runner going into it or anything like that, but it was still pretty amazing. It's always dope when people's hard work pays off, especially people who are in fields that are historically like against people that look like them. So that's pretty dope. Other stuff, the NFLRA, which is the NFL Referees Association, the union for other rich people, because most refs are filthy, stinking rich without being refs. There are a lot of them are lawyers and own like businesses and stuff like that. They're on the verge of a new CBA agreement between the NFL and the NFLRA, which is huge. And it's also hilarious because it's apparently they've been trying to negotiate this for like 2 years, and they thought that this would be the huge inflection point that would get the refs to sign a new collective bargaining agreement. They were right to a certain degree, but a couple of things happened prior to that. The NFL let it leak that they're out there recruiting replacement refs. Remember the last time replacement refs happened, it was like the worst, 6 weeks of football we had to deal with for the most part. Iconic moment, the Fail Mary involving my Seattle Seahawks, a midair 1v1 fight for a ball where the defensive back seemingly won the jump ball situation, and then the wide receiver who I can't, it was Golden Tate, I believe, came in at the last second and tried to pull the ball away, and one ref signaled that it was a touchdown, another ref signaled that it was interception, and it was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, one of the most iconic covers of Sports Illustrated ever, and one of the biggest faux pas probably the NFL has made in the last probably one of the few mistakes that the NFL has made in the last couple of years, including some other far more serious and grave decisions. Colin Kaepernick. Anyway, that shit's funny. They let it leak that they were recruiting replacement refs. They've also went ahead and they basically supercharged replay officiating from LSU. This was all deemed at first on its face look like a way to get the game more accurate and make sure that the game was being called the correct way. But really what it is an attempt to gain leverage over the current NFL refs that have a ton of experience and have the wherewithal to know all the rules intimately at a high detailed level. It was to basically they were setting themselves up where they could handhold a referee that steps into a game that has like a general, like has a pretty decent understanding of how to officiate an NFL football game or just a high-level football game in general. And remember, when they talk about the replacement refs, the biggest issue was they couldn't get the college refs because the college refs have their own union and they get paid pretty well. And some of the college refs want to stay college refs, and so they couldn't get those guys. And so they had to start going to different places. I think they got like lingerie football league refs and stuff like that. They got some guys out of retirement and all this kind of jazz. The NFL replacement ref situation should have been an ESPN 30 for 30, to be honest with you, just to find where some of these guys are nowadays. Because I remember when it was like leading up to one of the Saints games, and one of the Saints players like went and looked, or not players, one of the Saints fans went and looked up the officials for that week. Or no, it was the Saints Chargers or something like that. And one of the Chargers fans went and looked up the names of the refs, and his profile was public on Facebook. And one of the photos, like one of his most recent photos, him at a Saints game, coming out with Saints gear on. And so they posted it online. They were like, yeah, we're totally going to get a totally fair and unbiased game on Sunday, guys. And I remember that distinctly, which is pretty funny. But yeah, for the most part, this is more about, I think we just avoided one of the biggest bullets that we possibly could have, in the sense that the replacement ref, we don't need to see that again. I think we're good. Just you know, I know it's easy to sit here and tell somebody else to spend their money, but pay the dues, especially it's even harder knowing that the NFL refs already make a bunch of money. But I will say this, we learned something when those replacement refs were out on the field. The dudes that we get mad at on Sundays, the real refs that we get mad at on Sundays, it could be a lot worse. It can always be worse, folks. That's basically the big lesson to take away from this one. Basically, they talked about how the NFL has gone out of their way to approve a ton of instant replay or in-game officiating that's not the refs that are on the field. So the NFL HQ refs that are sitting back and watching, and they can radio down or like send messages back and forth with each other to actually make calls on the field to prevent to prevent massive mistakes from happening. And you know, it's kind of one of those, it's like a weird catch-22 because it's an attempt to reduce the power that officials have on the game, but it, in theory, will make the game better. Very much like the robot umps, like a lot of people want the human aspect of baseball because there are some things that automation cannot take away and cannot control and cannot do at the level that a human being can, even though that said human being will make mistakes. Like there's no robot that is going to get you a holding call correctly, right? Like get you a holding call in a situation where it's like, oh man, that's a holding call 15 yards away from the ball was caught, and it did not influence the play, but we still have to call it because we call every hold, which is not what happens in football. But yeah, that's a real thing. Luckily, they signed this deal. We avoided absolute disaster on that one, and that's my little tidbit of football stuff. I will also say this: I've been watching highlights of players from that did get drafted, just so I can get familiar with some of these guys. That Jacob Rodriguez kid from Texas Tech, holy shit! And then there's also like a 6 foot Chaz Woodsass. I'll get his name right because he's probably going to do some crazy shit in like week 3 or something. But he's like a 6'4" linebacker from Clemson, and he's pretty good. So there's one kid who got drafted. I think it was like C.J. Allen or something like that. He plays the way that Bobby Wagner plays right now, which is not great. But we'll see. Yeah, maybe he's just a little bit faster than Bobby is right now. But he plays like Bobby Wagner. He's basically like a raw, like offensive lineman try to hit him, and he just doesn't move. He does a good job of reading run plays and getting stops on run plays. Goes a long way in terms of the grand success of your career if you can learn how to play smart early, especially at the linebacker position where you can just get fucking mauled every single play. Moving on, let's talk about basketball. Let's talk about it. Playing basketball. I'm going to recap everything that happened in round 1, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's happened in round 2 so far. I watched Thunder Spurs game 1. I watched Timberwolves Spurs game 1. Huge win. The Timberwolves get Anthony Edwards back. They do not get Dante DiVincenzo back. Get Dante back. But they get Anthony Edwards back, and it was huge. He had some key turnovers late in the game. Did not Timberwolves from going out there and having the level of offense that matches the insane pace that their defense is on. Also, really sad to say, they've benched Rudy Gobert for the fourth quarter. It panned out for him. He went out there and he played a little bit, but late in the game, he was 0 for 4 from the free throw line, and then he missed the first one after they said he was 0 for 4, and then he made the second one. So he was 1 for 6 from the free throw line, and you guys know what it is. He's the big dude that can't shoot free throws, so they're going right at him at certain points. But for the most part, man, the Spurs offensively, their three-point shooting wasn't where they needed it to be. It looked a lot like what we saw with the Timberwolves when they played against the Nuggets. The Timberwolves did a really, really good job of destroying perimeter presence from the Nuggets. And the one time that they didn't do it, Spencer Jones, and that's how they won Game 5 of the series. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about round 1. The Thunder swept the Sun. The Sun have now lost 10 straight playoff games. They have been swept twice, and then they lost. They lost 2 to end their season 3 years ago, and then they got swept twice. They've made it to the first round of the playoffs 2 years in a row, and they've been swept both times. Fun times. Great times in Phoenix. We'll see how that goes for them in terms of building a team. Jalen Green in his first year with the Suns, they found out why he didn't get that extension with the Rockets, but we'll see if he gets better. Lakers beat the Rockets in 6 games. This was a long time coming. They kind of drew it out a little bit more because at the end of the day, the Rockets are a good basketball team. They're just not good enough to be like a real contender for, beyond the first round of the playoffs. Kevin Durant missing games didn't help a lot, but for the most part, the big silver lining for the season, and I say this with a big eye roll, all the young players got a lot of playing time to work on how to play basketball at a high level. What they're missing is chemistry amongst each other on offense and the consistent three-point shooting. A lot of people have big hopes for Reed Shepherd because he looked pretty good at the point guard position. He will be better when he's the backup point guard next season. So we'll see. But yeah, that's it. And I think it's, you know what? Fuck it, I'll say it. It's okay to say it out loud, guys. The Lakers were missing 2 of their best 3 players. And the one of the 3 that was still available was a 41-year-old LeBron James. And he led the LA Lakers to a playoff series as the oldest player in the history of the NBA. Crazy shit, man. Crazy stuff, man. I'm going to find out what it feels like to be 41. I'd like to, fingers crossed, I'm going to find out what it feels like to be 41, and then I will report back on just how insane it is that he was able to do what he did in this series and what he's going to do, in round 2. They're down 0-1 already, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be because there was like a floating 10-point lead, and there was a couple times that the Lakers cut down the lead. They cut into the lead. They never were able to actually get ahead. But yeah, man. No Luka, and they could look a lot worse. They don't have Luka, and they could look a lot worse. And I'll say that much. But yes, I sit back and absorb that oldest player in the NBA led the Lakers to a playoff series win. Don't forget that. Might be the last time we get a chance to see him. But yeah, it's wild as hell. The Timberwolves win in a 4-2 series win. The Nuggets, we talked about it already. The Nuggets collapse was fucking insane. The Timberwolves didn't have their 2 best scorers. And honestly, one of those 2 guys is a top 10 player in the league. And you have on your side, if you're the Nuggets, you have a really good Jamal Murray who's gotten better since he became the starting point guard all those years ago. And you have Nikola Jokic, who is going to be an all-time legendary basketball player. You couldn't win a series. You couldn't win 2 games versus a team that was down their 2 best players. And it's embarrassing. It's a horrible way to go out. And Jokic, after the game, I think everybody saw it. I'll say it again. He said if we were in Serbia, everybody would be fired. And I was like, that's true. Luckily, we are in America, and only mostly everybody will be fired. The biggest thing to take away from this is obviously the drop-off of the players that Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are passing the ball to. and what they're able to get out of those possessions. Like Cam Johnson for Michael Porter Jr., we all saw it. It is not apples for apples. A lot of people were trying to say that was just a clean swap. Cam is really good basketball player. He did not fill the role that Michael Porter Jr. did. I hate saying that because it's me saying something nice about a piece of shit guy like Michael Porter Jr. But nonetheless, the other part was Aaron Gordon not playing for half the games in this playoff series. It really put him in the grave. That's what it really came down to a vast majority of this. He played 3 games out of the 6, and you can tell which ones he played and which ones he didn't. Yeah. So that being said, this is quite possibly the worst loss in the first round out of all the teams in the NBA. I think it is, honestly, because everybody else has got some kind of silver lining for what they can look forward to on their team, or they had great success, or they weren't supposed to be here, or they have great expectations and they've advanced on. And the Nuggets were a team that had great expectations that doesn't have like some grandiose future to look forward to. They were a team that is out of sync in terms of like what their good players are doing, what their young players are doing. And maybe next year the young players take a massive leap forward, but the Nuggets are in the phase where they're not depending on young players to develop. They're in the phase where they're expecting to be active free agents to get players to come and play 3-and-D for them to work around Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. But yeah, man, this is the worst first round exit in the playoffs. I'm saying a lot because the Magic lost in the 3-1 comeback. So moving on, the Spurs played the Blazers. The Blazers, like I said before, the Blazers weren't supposed to be here. They were not a good team at the beginning of the season. Picked up real late in the season. They worked their way through the play-in game, and they earned their spot in the playoffs. They got smoked by the Spurs, who were just overall a better team, especially when they have Wemby out there. But even then, their defensive presence versus the Blazers, it was smothering. There was a lot of cool moments that Deni Avdija had and everything like that. But for the most part, man, it is just the big takeaway, obviously, for them is that Deni Avdija and Scoot Henderson looked really good. Throughout the course of this season, they found a coach that can really connect and motivate the players. Thiago Splitter, a former Spurs player, ironically enough. And the biggest hurdle may be the fact that, I don't know, man, is their team owner signaling that he's not willing to spend the money to go out there and make the team better, and they're just going to depend upon the draft? Because if they're going to do that, they did the worst thing possible this year and kept winning. So that's the big takeaway from this one. Also, the Spurs are really good at basketball. And it's not just because of Wemby. It's because, they got Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox, Keldon Johnson, and Champagnie. All those guys are like actually stepping up and filling the roles that are needed for their team to be overall playing at a high level. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the Blazers. They weren't supposed to be here. And for them to get a win versus the Spurs, who have like a real chance of winning the NBA championship this year, is massive. So for them overall. The Pistons eliminated the Magic. And I'll say this, all the crazy accolades that go with this. The Pistons pulled off the rarest form of playoff win possible in the NBA, in the history of the NBA. There have only been 14 teams in the history of this leg, who have pulled off a 3-1 comeback. They were down 3-1, and they came back and won the series. They are the 15th team to do it. The 14th was the 76ers, who did it the day before them. All of that, plus they broke a playoff series losing streak that has spanned 20 years. The Pistons had not won a playoff series in 18 years. And all of that was because of two things. Cade Cunningham balling so hard, he was on another planet. And the Pistons playing some nasty defense after Game 4. So it was probably, like, if you're a Pistons fan, like, the best thing that you could possibly see. They locked up the Magic. Powell had a 45-point game in this series, and its value got wiped away from just how insane Cade Cunningham was. I think he averaged like 32 points in this series as a whole. They had a point where they gave up 96 points in the course of like 2 games or something, or the course of like 6 quarters versus the Magic. And They pulled it off with some great offense from K, and even more importantly, amazing defensive effort from everybody else on the court. When early on in this series, it was like they were just getting bodied in the paint, and they were giving up easy buckets, and they just kind of cinched it down. They cinched it down until there was no other choice for the Magic than to lose the game. That's pretty much it, man. The Cavaliers beat the Raptors in 7 games. The most forgettable series of the first round series. Probably the least interesting first round series. Next to Spurs Blazers, the least interesting series. Even though it went 7 games, it was like a weird 7 games. The Cavaliers, Cavs fans, they won this series. They gotta be pretty pissed that it went 7 games, just because like you have a team with Evan Mobley who looks like he could be the epitome of a stretch 4, if you will. You have Jared Allen, one of the better defensive centers in the NBA. Donovan Mitchell, who's supposed to be a guy that can like lead a team to a men's victory and stuff like that. We saw what he did with the Jazz and what he's been able to do in his career so far. And then James Harden, who is going to be an NBA Hall of Famer and is one of the greatest scorers in the history of basketball. And all 4 of those guys, you do not want them in a high-pressure situation. And what you know, Game 7 is the highest pressure situation you could possibly find yourself in. One of them stood up and really got it done, and it was Jared Allen in Game 7. And also, big shout out to James Harden for not fucking it up. That is huge for James. James was really, he had a lot of moments that he looked bad in the entirety of this series. But going into that Game 7, if you're a Cavs fan, you were mentally prepared to go out there and lose this by a massive upset versus the Raptors. Shout out to the Raptors for taking it this far and making it this close. They went out there and did their thing. I will say the fact that there's the super clutch Detroit Pistons going up against the probably least clutch team going on into the second round of the playoffs in the Cavaliers. I'm very interested to see how this matchup lines up, because it feels like the matchups are supposed to favor the Cavs. But only time will tell. Only time will tell, I'll say that much. Moving on, the Knicks smoked the Hawks. Got some chicken wings out of them. And the nerves about losing the series washed away, especially when you look back on it. And sometimes, and I feel like we all have this happen too, if you pay attention to New York fans or New York fandom in general, they will have you convinced that the team is terrible. And then when you look back at it, it's like they won every game by 30 points and then they lost one by like 2 points, which is essentially what happened in this one. So the Knicks, it goes 6 games. The two losses that the Knicks got in this one were by 2 points. They lost back-to-back games by 1 point. And then they handed the Hawks a 61-point elimination loss. And now, and I give you a little preview to round 2, they beat the shit out of the 76ers. As a matter of fact, they've now beaten the 76ers twice, because it's 2-0. They beat them tonight. And they are on a 7-game playoff. They would be on a, if it wasn't for the 2 losses to the Hawks, they would have swept them in 4. And now they would be on a 6-game win streak in the playoffs. They won their last 3 playoff games by 25 points or more. And one of those was a win by 61. So, yeah, that's never happened, by the way. Nobody's ever won 3 playoff games in a row by 25 points or more. Crazy work. The key takeaway for the Hawks, and I hate to pick on this guy, but there's great expectations for this dude, obviously, because he's immensely talented. But there's definitely something to be said. Jonathan Kuminga had a minus 40 plus in this game after like 12 minutes. That lets you know how bad it was. But yeah, the 76ers moving on. Massive upset over the reigning champs, the Boston Celtics. I'm sorry, I say reigning champs. They won the championship 2 years ago. They are massive upset over the Celtics, who were missing Jason Tatum for the vast majority of the regular season. Lost him in Game 7, which obviously painted a lot of what happened in Game 7 as well. But the big takeaway for sure is the doubt about Joel Embiid, I feel like, has to be faded a little bit, man. He looked like he was near his full form again, even though he claims that he was faking that he was injured when he was running up and down the court at one point or another. But Joel Embiid was a huge part of why the 76ers were able to pull this one off, man. But Tyrese Maxey, playoff P doing playoff P things, got a dub, back again, another come back from absolute desolation from Paul George, an immensely talented basketball player who was going to be a Hall of Famer. And then Tyrese Maxey, plus a little help from the Rook and VJ Edge. Gotta like it. They look like they could be going in the right direction. By the way, quick question. If you're a Celtics fan, are you upset about the whole, letting Kristaps go? They didn't really have a choice financially, but it also was a little – it's weird when, you look at Robert Williams and you saw how well he played as the starting center for the Celtics and how they let him go as well. And now knowing that, you play the 76ers and the 76ers pull off this crazy 3-1 comeback win, and you look at it and you're just like, it's because of the paint. They got destroyed underneath the basket. They got destroyed by any center trying to defend anybody beyond the paint as well, because Joel Embiid was there's just no other way around it. Game 7 rolled around, and the Celtics did make history on their way out. They had 3 starters in this game who scored 0 points. That has never happened since the NBA started recording who starts games in the 70s. Combine that with the fact that one of the starters was Luka Garza. And if you're unfamiliar with Luka Garza's game, let me enlighten you. Luka Garza, prior to Game 7 of this playoff series, had started 3 games in his NBA career, and he is not a rookie. So, yeah, crazy stuff overall, man. Amazing performance from the 76ers, who started the season down. The last season was pretty horrible for him. Embiid hurt multiple times throughout the course of this one. A lot of people obviously have always questioned Joel Embiid's durability, but to see him go out here and win this playoff series is going to be huge, especially considering their next phase is going to be a tough one in terms of what they're playing the Knicks in round 2, and they're already down 2-0. Lost the first game 137-98 because the Knicks are just a heater. Jones said it on his podcast earlier, and I'm starting to believe him a little bit. It is embarrassing if the Knicks don't make it at least to the Eastern Conference Finals. So they are on fire. A lot of it is due to finally getting the ball cat, and then Mitchell Robinson's defense has been insane. Mitchell Robinson's defense is something that essentially locked out the Hawks from the paint, and he was amazing. Karl Anthony Towns obviously doing his thing as well. And the 76ers lack of presence down low outside of Joel Embiid is going to be an issue. So we'll see what happens. I will say this: Nick Nurse's brother, I believe his name is Steve Nurse, passed away, and Nick had to go to the funeral. Obviously, his brother. It's very sad for him, and I'm condolences to him and his family. Man, that's got to be horrible to be going through, especially right now. He coached tonight for Game 2, and they played a lot better. But that's got to be some heartbreaking shit right there, man. And the Knicks are back. They've been back. But they finally were looking. We said they were looking sketchy in the first round, but like I said before, they lost teams by a combined 2 points. So it's not sketchy because you really look. Other stuff, like I said before, the Minnesota Timberwolves are playing the Spurs. I really enjoyed that game. One, it was the Spurs home game. They did the Fiesta colors in the crowd, which is amazing because there's organizations that aren't even providing T-shirts for their fans, and then there are organizations that are shaming their fans and putting the T-shirt on before the game by putting cams on them and stuff like that, and using overlay effects to make it look like they're wearing the T-shirt. But and the Spurs were able to get multiple people wear 7 different colors in each section. Amazing photos that will go down in history for sure. Anyway, other stuff. What was I looking at? There's a game going on right now. The Spurs are up 59-35 at home versus the Timberwolves. And that's pretty much it. The Pistons did beat the Cavaliers by 10 in game number 1. I got to go rewatch that one. And the Lakers, like I said before, I watched the Lakers Thunder when that one was tough. It didn't really feel like the Lakers were in it. But they kept cutting the lead down at multiple points throughout it, but there's just not enough consistent offense from them, and obviously it comes down to the three-point shooting, man. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, there was some weird stuff, and I couldn't tell. If you're a smart basketball person than me, hit me up at FBM Playbook. There was a lot of rotations where either the Thunder, I think the Lakers were trying to use their bigs to force Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to pick a direction, and then force him into help on a guard to prevent him from taking his mid-range and stuff like that, and then also have a center in trail position as he's going towards the hoop, putting them in a better position to be able to actually shot get blocks off of them. But we'll see if they did. We'll see if they do that in game 2. It was an interesting approach. I don't think it worked very often, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander did not have a good game, so maybe they'll stick with it. We'll see. Other than that, I'm out. I guys hear my voice. It's fading. Killing me. Most importantly, thank you for anybody who watched this podcast all the way through. Let me know some other stuff you want to hear me talk about. Don't forget, we are slut-shaming Stefon Diggs indefinitely. Crazy work in that story, man. Other than that, I'm out. Make sure you drink water, hydrate. Tell the people that you love them, that you love them. Happy Mother's Day to all the dope-ass moms and all future moms and all the potential future moms out there. And I say this as a guy who has, I don't give birth to children. Also be considerate of moms who miscarried trying to become moms and stuff like that, and have not brought to term just yet. And here's hoping, fingers crossed for them, and good luck to them and their families as they try and make their family a little bit bigger. Shout out to you guys for listening to the pod. I appreciate it. One thing left to say. Go home, Roger.